to fight on the landing ground.
Thank you for joining us. You are listening to A Radio, and this is the Morning Moment. We're on weekdays, 11:45 Eastern. Follow us on Spreaker.com and click on the like button. This piece is called Democrats Block Born Alive Bill. Democrats block a bill that outlaws doctors refusing to treat a baby born alive. The following Democrats, this is a list of presidential candidates, people who would be the President of the United States if they won the presidential election, voted to block this bill. They are Senators Kamala Harris, Amy Klobuchar, Cory Booker, Sherrod Brown, Kristen Gillibrand, Elizabeth Warren, and of course Bernie Sanders. These people are trying to block a bill that protects newly born babies, but is also the same party that is trying to block Americans' right to protect themselves under the Second Amendment of the United States Constitution. I'm going to play a short clip from Fox and Friends, February 27, where they play a clip from The View. It's a little unclear, so you'll have to listen carefully, and you will hear liberals on The View trying to justify what I call after-birth abortion.
Outrage growing after Senate Democrats block a bill to help babies after failed abortions. We're going to discuss that coming up next.
Abortion should be put down like a dog or a cat.
This is why I need to push back on it. This is why I need to push back.
It's infanticide.
On Monday in the U.S. Senate, a bill Democrats call the Born Alive bill. It was sponsored by Ben Sasse, the great state of Nebraska, and it was co-sponsored by 49 other Republican senators. And the bill would require doctors to save an infant who survived an abortion. And if the doctor did not attempt to save the baby, then he would face jail time. Democrats overwhelmingly voted against it, including everybody running for president.
Yeah, look at that list. Senator Kamala Harris, Senator Amy Klobuchar, Senator Cory Booker, Senator Sherrod Brown, Senator Kristen Gillibrand, Senator Elizabeth Warren, and Senator Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, I think Joe Manchin and Doug Jones are among the Democrats who did not vote for it. Meghan McCain was outraged by this failure to pass, and she took it out on the rest of her staff and told America how she stood. Sonny Hostin had the other side. Let's listen to this semi-debate.
I thought you were pro-life like me.
I am, and that's why I need to push back on it, because
So you think a baby born from a botched abortion should be put down like a dog or a cat?
This is why I need to push back on it. This is why I need to push back.
It's infanticide.
Because the bill that the Senate Dems blocked yesterday was to provide medical care for infants who survived failed abortions.
Yes.
Now, one thing is,
so
it's
those
something
babies
that's
should just be left to die on a table.
It's something that's so extremely rare.
The Democratic Party wants to be the party of infanticide.
All right, we got it.
Their choice.
Now,
Meghan McCain said it's disgusting.
Yeah. Senator Kamala Harris, Senator Amy Klobuchar, Senator Cory Booker, Senator Sherrod Brown, Senator Kristen Gillibrand, Senator Elizabeth Warren, and Senator Bernie Sanders.
I urge you to remember the list of names, because they won't be the last ones you hear. This is why I describe it as murder. They use some technical term, but taking the life of a human being, in my mind, is murder. Why do I call it murder? Well, back in 2013, a Philadelphia court called it exactly that. That's why I'm so adamant. That was their view in 2013. This is a clip from the Guardian newspaper. The links, as always, will be on my site. Now, ahead of time, I have to apologise for the graphic nature, but it is what it is. The headline is Philadelphia abortion doctor sentenced to 3 life terms in jail. Kermit Gosnell, 72, was convicted for first-degree murder in the deaths of 3 babies born alive at his Rouge clinic. The jury spent 10 days deliberating his case before finding him guilty of first-degree murder. A Philadelphia doctor was sentenced Wednesday to a 3rd life term for killing an aborted baby that he described as being so big it could have walked to the bus. Dr. Kermit Gosnell was convicted this week of first-degree murder in the deaths of 3 babies born alive at his Rouge clinic, then stabbed with scissors. He was given 2 life sentences Tuesday in a deal with prosecutors that spared him the potential death sentence, and a third sentence was handed down Wednesday. The sentences offer no chance at parole, meaning Gosnell, 72, will spend the rest of his life in prison. The case has made Gosnell a flashpoint in the nation's bitter debate over legalized abortion. Prosecutors argued that Gosnell savagely killed late-term babies born alive by severing their spines and taught several staff members the technique. Goodness me. 9 former clinic workers were convicted in the case and 4 others pled guilty to murder. Despite the notoriety of the case, Gosnell has seemed oddly serene in the court during the 2-month trial and apparently sees himself as a medical pioneer and tireless advocate for inner-city patients. Quote, "I wanted to be an effective, positive force in the minority community," Gosnell told the Philadelphia Daily News in a 2010 interview when he predicted he would be vindicated of the allegations in the harrowing grand jury report. He chose not to address the judge during Wednesday's sentencing, but prosecutors said he grew increasingly reckless as he accumulated millions of dollars from his rogue clinic, which was described as a pill mill for addicts by day and abortion mill by night. The jury spent 10 days deliberating before finding Gosnell had killed babies or had them killed, and then the jury found him complicit in the death of a 41-year-old patient, a Virginia woman who was repeatedly sedated by his untrained medical assistants. He was also sentenced Wednesday to 2.5 to 5 years in her death. Gosnell was also convicted of hundreds of abortion law violations for performing illegal third-term abortions or failing to counsel women and teens. Gosnell was acquitted in the deaths of 4 other infants. Prosecutors declined to comment on the verdict, citing a gag order that was expected to be lifted Wednesday when Gosnell's sentence is finalised. There's a lot more in here. I'm just going to read a little bit more. The lawyer said he's a proud man. To bring his young family into court was something he did not want to do, his lawyer said. A 2011 grand jury investigation into Gosnell's alleged prescription drug trafficking led to the gruesome findings of his abortion clinic, during which an FBI raid authorities found 47 aborted fetuses stored in the clinic freezers, jars of tiny feet, severed, blood-stained furniture, dirty medical instruments, along with cats roaming the premises. Prosecution experts said the Delaware teen carrying a baby A, whose death Gosnell was sentenced on Wednesday, was nearly 30 weeks pregnant when Gosnell aborted her fetus. A second baby was said to be alive for 20 minutes before the clinic, I apologise for this, snipped the neck. A third baby, born in a toilet, was moving before the clinic employee, severed the spinal cord, according to the testimony. This is particularly disturbing. A fourth baby let out a whimper before Gosnell cut the neck, prosecutors alleged. Gosnell was acquitted in that baby's death, the only one of the 4 in which no one testified to seeing the baby killed. His lawyer argued that none of these fetuses were born alive and that any movements were posthumous twitching or spasms. What a great lawyer. I'm going to play a clip now from Fox News back in 2013 from, of all people, Megyn Kelly. This is a long clip, but listen to the end part for a legal view on termination date. Very enlightening.
State of mind is, as any intelligent human being would be at this point in time, he's disappointed and he's upset. I mean, we aired out our position on this over a long trial. We had a fair trial. We got to put out our position, and the jury spoke.
Well, that was Dr. Kermit Gosnell's defense attorney, Jack McMahon, describing his client's reaction after he was convicted of first-degree murder in the deaths of 3 babies born alive after Dr. Gosnell performed botched abortion attempts on them. Last week, Gosnell was sentenced to more than 3 consecutive life sentences behind bars after operating a Philadelphia clinic for decades where he performed hundreds of illegal late-term abortions. The clinic was described by investigators as a filthy, decrepit house of horrors, where Gosnell demonstrated very little concern for his patients or their babies. Now some are shocked to hear that Gosnell was, quote, disappointed and upset over his conviction, and wondering whether he expressed any such sentiments for his victims. Joining me now in his first cable news interview since the verdict, Kermit Gosnell's attorney, Jack McMahon. Jack, thank you very much for being here. And I want to make clear from the outset, we don't tar the attorney with the sins of the client. That's not the way this system works.
Thank God.
In this country. But let me just pick up with you there because, you know, coming out and describing him as upset, and we heard testimony that he wasn't upset when he was aborting these babies, and he was laughing about how one baby was big enough to walk him to the bus stop. It was a moment, it was a little surreal to hear about how upset he was at his own fortune. Your thought?
Well, I mean, that was the question that was asked to me, how he was feeling. The honest answer was he was upset. I mean, he had a trial. We put out our position. We tried to win the case. And anytime you try to win and you lose a large portion of the case, you're going to be disappointed. I don't care who you are. I mean, that's just a normal human reaction. I don't think it's anything indicative of anything nefarious on his part. That's just being a human. You spent a lot of time with him. And, I mean, it's funny you should say just being a human, because that was one of the questions raised by the prosecution in this case, is what kind of a human being could do this? Could abort babies that were, 30 weeks along? I mean, these are babies. These aren't embryos. These are babies that can survive outside the womb. What was your experience with Dr. Gosnell? Well, as I said before, Dr. Gosnell was a dream client. In this business, some of them aren't a dream. And for 2.5 years, he's been nothing but a gentleman, polite, understanding, fully appreciative of the work that I've done for him. A complete gentleman. I mean, he's a soft-spoken man. He's an intelligent man. And, I'm not going to sit there and tell you that things didn't get out of hand and things went a bit awry at that location. But as far as the totality of Dr. Gosnell, he's not just defined by the events of 2008. He's defined by 72 years of life. A bit awry. I mean, Jack, well, I mean, the babies were, the testimony was the babies were born alive, were wiggling on the operating table, were crying, and he stuck scissors in the back of their neck. That's not true. First of all, that's not the testimony, and I can give you the transcripts if you want to know what actually was said. The jury found he was guilty of murder. Oh, absolutely, and we respect that verdict. Babies. There was 8, and he's got convicted of it, and that's correct. But he was also charged with 8 murders, and 5 of them were not guilty. But I'm challenging your assertion that things went a little awry at the clinic. Well, it did, because there was no oversight for over 18 years. Nobody ever came and looked at that location, and things went downhill. I would agree with that. That place should have been checked on a yearly basis. It should have. That was definitely one of the problems. That was definitely one of the problems. There's oversight. No question. But you know what the number one problem was? Dr. Kermit Gosnell. Well, I mean, that's a simplistic way to look at it, and really? But I don't think that's accurate. Or I do think that, because or just factual. Well, I mean, when you sit there and say that the babies were squirming and wiggling on the operating table, that's just not true. I mean, you can get the transcripts and read it and find out what the true testimony was of the 3 babies. Are you disputing now that they were born alive, as the jury found before Dr. Gosnell murdered them? The jury found that, and we respect that, and that's their belief. Dr. Gosnell, in my position throughout the trial, that's all we need to know. He tried to abort them. And he failed, and then he tried to kill them once they were born alive. That's what the jury said. That's what the jury found. I mean, and not only that, and the jury found that, but that wasn't his defense. The conditions of the clinic it reeked of animal urine. Cats had defecated all over it. Furniture and blankets stained with blood. Instruments not properly sterilized. Not true. The difference in the way he treated women of color versus white women. Not true. Okay, all of it's not true. The jury made it all up. Right there. No, they found him guilty of murder, and again, that's their decision, and that's what we're standing by. But what you just said there about babies squirming on the table, blood-soaked blankets, tools not being sterilized, is all not accurate as to what the testimony was in the trial. So it was the Mayo Clinic. It was the Mayo Clinic. It was great. Well, women had a great experience there, including the one that he was convicted of involuntarily manslaughtering. Well, let me say this to you. He had over 16,000 patients, and most all of them were referrals or repeat business. That tells you something right there. It does, and it's nothing good. I mean, the problem here, Jack, is that he was running a late-term abortion clinic. That is what he was being used for. You don't know the facts. You don't know the facts. That's not true. How does the baby, if it's not late-term abortion, how does the baby get born alive? Because generally, if you would abort a baby early on in the pregnancy, it doesn't get born alive. You said he was running a late-term abortion. There were late-term abortions. He was convicted of that, and they were wrong. But the vast, vast majority, over 95% of them, were all first-term abortions. Very rarely were they. And when they went in and found 47 feet fetuses there. 45 of them were all legally within the limit of 24 weeks in Pennsylvania.
Why do you keep body parts of the little babies around the clinic? Why do you keep the feet?
Well, again, you're not understanding the evidence. You're not paying attention to what the real evidence was, and you want the evidence to be what you think it is. But it's not what it is.
Why did he do it?
He kept it as all the Commonwealth witnesses testified. Every witness for the government testified that the reason that he kept a few of the body parts, which were feet, were for purposes of DNA analysis for the as requested by the patient's family. That's why he did it. He had 16,000 abortions, and they found 2 or 3 feet. So don't sit around and start talking like he's collecting body parts.
It's strange how I would be moved by just 2 or 3 babies' feet being chopped off and kept as souvenirs. I understand that.
No, they were not souvenirs. If you want to call it souvenirs, that's a lie.
Getting back to my original question, why did he laugh about the baby that he was trying to abort, that he did abort, that was big enough to walk him to the bus stop? Why was that so funny to him?
We don't believe that testimony is true. I mean, that's what he said, and he never admitted that to me, and I don't believe that testimony is true. That's what they said. So I can't comment on something that he says never happened.
Jack, I started off by saying we don't tar the lawyers with the sins of the clients, and that's true. But listening to you sound like a guy who's suffering from Stockholm syndrome, because you seem to believe this is a swell man.
No, I'm not saying he did things wrong.
That he murdered little babies.
Listen, you sit there and say that they're squirming around on the table and stick scissors. That's not the facts of the case.
Why are you even arguing that point? Let me concede to you then. I will concede to you, for the purposes of this discussion, that they were not squirming around on the table. They were born alive, sir. They were born alive.
That's what the jury, and that's what the jury found,
and them. And then he murdered them by sticking scissors in their necks. How do you come out and defend him now?
I'm defending. We presented a defense for 2 months that these babies were not born alive, that they were injected with a pharmaceutical digoxin, which causes fetal demise, that was requested by the women, that they agreed to, and that these babies were dead in utero, as evidence in the case suggested, and the medical examiner also said that.
The babies have rights of their own when they are past 24 weeks in the state of Pennsylvania. It's not between the woman and her doctor.
I agree with you. And I'll tell you what, I've come out of this case realizing that 24 weeks is a bad determiner. It should be like 16, 17 weeks. That would be a far better thing, because the babies would not be even arguably viable at that point in time. And I think the law should be changed to that. I think pro-choice would have still the right to choose, but they got to choose quicker. And I think that's something that should come out of this. I think more regulation should come out of these locations. Well, I'm not sitting here saying this was all done right.
Actually, I shouldn't say that, because NARAL, Pro-Choice America, and some other groups like Planned Parenthood are disputing some of the regulations that have been proposed. Jack, thanks for coming on.
My pleasure.
What has happened to America that it is now considered legal to murder a child, when in 2013, under the administration of President Obama, it was not? How can these acts be morally defensible? I say they cannot. What has happened to American politicians that they can ignore the cries of a newborn baby? What the hell has happened to humanity that acts like this are taking place? Is America just a heartbeat away from the atrocities that were uncovered in World War II? And finally, since when was murder legal in the United States? I didn't think it was. And that's my comment. You can find more at aradio.wordpress.com, where you can find links to us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Gab, and email. You can now find us on Spotify. Just go to the podcast section and type Canadian Politics with a Twist, and you'll find us. We are continuing to reach out to you, so please pass on the links. Please click on the follow button on Spreaker.com. You can listen to all my morning moments at Spreaker.com under A Radio, that's EHRADIO, A Radio. And please click on the like button. And you can find all my podcasts and morning moments at aradio.wordpress.com. And click on the Morning Moments tab.